AJ, and yeah, it shut down that road. It started, hit like 7 o'clock this morning and went on to, I don't think they cleared it until almost 4 o'clock. Okay, we're on. Very good. Is there anybody online? Is there a number that says 4870679? There isn't? If it is, let me know. It's my wife. I got a reminder. I let my phones at home, and then the bag goes by. She's gonna let me know if anything happens. She can call one of you guys. Okay, so we're gonna start the meeting tonight. Tonight is the Board of Selectmen meeting, June 16th, 2024. It's a regular meeting. I am Bob Carlson, the first selectman. Also with us tonight, Nicole Porter, selectman, and Selectman Brett Mastriani, and IT Director Quentin Chardonnay. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. With that said, are there any public comments on non-agenda items? That's non-agenda items. As you know, when we work on agenda items, we let you speak during the meeting. So it's a non-agenda item. You can speak now. Madeline, anything from you right now on a non-agenda item? Perfect. Then you'll have a chance to speak during that time if you care to. Is anybody online, Quentin, that we can see that has nobody has a hand up? And that Rhode Island number 4870679 is not there yet? Okay, let me know if it pops in. Okay, with that said, we have minutes, 2 sets of minutes from the May 28th and also from June
The Parks and Rec one.
June 18th. Yep, so
Yep, I can do this.
perfect, thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the Town of North Stonington Board of Selectmen meeting held on June 18th, 2024 at 6:30 PM at the North Stonington Education Center and via Zoom as written.
Okay,
Second.
okay, Brett seconds that, so motion by Nicole, Brett, second. Any discussion on those? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it passes.
I'll make a motion to approve the Town of North Stonington Board of Selectmen special meeting held on May 28th, 2024 at 6:30 PM at the Parks and Recreation Building as written.
Great,
Second.
second, so we have a, Nicole motioned, Brett seconded. Is there any discussion? Brett, I don't think you were at that meeting, correct? So will you be abstaining, or you want to vote to approve it anyway? You can do either. Okay, yep, whatever, however you feel comfortable, great. Okay, hearing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Okay. So the minutes have passed. As you see, there's not much in the packet this evening. Are there any comments by either selectmen, comments, questions?
I just wanted to give a shout out to and thank the fair committee in the Grange for a great fair. But I wanted to give a special thanks to Carl Johnson, and I didn't know he was on until I just saw that, but I was gonna thank him. He kind of goes unnoticed for all the work that he does in town. He's on our Board of Finance, but behind the scenes, he does so much. And I saw him there as I drove by for weeks ahead of time, working with others as well. But he's kind of that quiet helper in town that really does a lot. I know he's come here to help look at stuff on the roof and helps fix things all the time. And he's just one of those guys that volunteers all the time for all kinds of things and helps the community out so much. And he's not on social media talking about things. He's just quiet and does so much for the town. So I just wanted to give a special thanks to him.
I want to echo that too, Carl. I know you're on. I was particularly impressed with how everybody quickly pivoted on Saturday when the regular lot for parking was flooded, and we had to utilize the lot behind the historical society. And they were right there. Our highway department, our fire department, in the road directing people. It was very smooth, and we were still able to enjoy the fair. So absolutely agree with your recognition.
And I'm surprised we haven't brought this up before because I agree with everything you said, Brett. It's tough to classify what Carl represents. He's the town's handyman. He's the volunteer extraordinaire. He does everything, and I think he does sometimes go unnoticed because he's a quiet individual for the most part. So yeah, kudos to Carl Johnson, and I'm glad that this is a recorded meeting, and then we'll get that in the minutes. And thanks for all you do, Carl.
I hope you get some much needed rest, Carl, soon.
And while you're on this meeting, I have no idea because you should be resting right now. Anyway, with that said, anything else from either selectman? Okay, so first selectman comments, I will just say I'll fill you in, but I've been asked by the library to meet with them on Monday, the 22nd, just for them to give me an update of where they are with their funding and an additional grant that they're working on. Also, I'll address this more when we get to vacancies and appointments, but I'll kind of bring you update on where we are on the town hall situation as far as personnel. Okay, that's it. So we're up to the conservation easement discussion. And what I have is given to me by Bill Ricker. You'll see it's the decision by what the Conservation Commission has come up with, and I'm going to give you a few minutes to read it since we still are missing some people. And on the arts and craft handout, what that represents is the piece that's loose. That's all Mashantucket property. The pieces with the X's in the crossouts, that's the conservation easements. There's two of them. One you recognized is the one on Swantown Road, the bigger one on the bottom right. And then the small one on the left was the one that was, I think some of us went to that back the first time this came around. That's on the golf course, just behind the golf course. So that's all Mashantucket property, but those two areas are specifically conservation easement property. Bill had asked if he could speak. I see Steve here from the Conservation Commission. I don't see Bill here. And I know that I did mention to the gentleman, Chris, from I told him we postponed the last meeting and we would be at the meeting tonight, that we'd be addressing this. I don't see him here, but so Steve, are you here in place of Bill to talk about this at all, or? So let's do this. Let me give the selectmen a minute or two just to look at the paperwork. And then if you want to take the podium, you can give us some background on what you think. And then if the people from Hull Forest Parks aren't here, we'll discuss as selectmen. I will say that it's important that we make some sort of decision this evening, because if we don't make a decision, they can start work at any time after August 1st. And no decision is basically not a no. It's almost like a yes. So we'll have to make a decision one way or the other this evening.
I can say that I did read that email when it was sent to us. I don't have any further questions.
Okay. Then you can just keep signing checks.
Yep.
Nicole, you'll sign checks later for me. Madeline, yes, you can come up and ask a question if you'd like. I'll let you ask a question if you'd like. Gotta go up to that microphone though.
I live on Mountain Hill Road. My own property is in a conservation easement. That was my family's choice. It's been in one for 10 years. And so I've been doing a lot of research on the concept of conservation easements in North Stonington. And so one did come up the other night at Inland Wetlands, and Bill Ricker was there with his paper to explain how the town does take conservation easements. And I thought that was what you were talking about tonight. But is this about your cases?
This is specifically about the Magic Pequot tribal nation and the conservation easements on their property that were made conservation easements during the building of the golf courses. This was specific to that particular project.
Well, I do think it's a very, very important conservation tool. I'm not sure if I agree all the time with how the town is using it, but I do think it is a vital tool for people who want to protect their land and want to pass it on to their families with all kinds of restrictions. And then somebody holds that easement so that it can be very controversial. If the owner of the property and the holder of the easement don't get along, or if they decide not to work well together.
Great, thank you.
I think that's all.
Oh, that's actually for the gentleman from the Whole Forest Parks if he shows up. That's for him. If he doesn't show up, you can have it. Okay, Steve, would you like to talk for the Conservation Commission?
Steve Bogan, I live on Mountain Avenue. So the Conservation Commission scrutinized what's in their deed, and what we wanted to do was make sure that any activity going forward was consistent with the wording in their specific deed about the conservation easement. And if you look at the specific wording, what they're proposing is inconsistent with the specific language in the conservation easement. That's the long story short. I can give you more detail if you want, but the position of the Conservation Commission is that their land outside of the conservation easements, they can do whatever they want, but the forest farming that they're proposing within the conservation easement, we feel it's our position, it's inconsistent with how the deed is written. So our position is that all forestry activities cease and permanently desist, and they rebuild the wall that they used to create that, basically a 20-foot road. That's our position.
Okay, that microphone dropped, but just in case we ask you a question, we can, you can push that back up if you don't mind. Okay, so I'll make my comment last. Nicole, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was a little bit confused when the ask came back to us that they wanted to start up again after, right, I'm remembering correctly, they actually paid a fee the first time that I believe we put into the Conservation Commission line item.
We put into land acquisition.
Land acquisition, thank you. I'm confused why we're being asked again, not by you. I'm confused by their ask to continue harvesting. When we went out that day, it was incredibly clear to me, the clear cutting of land. I am not afraid to say right now, even before the vote, that I am not in favor of granting them permission to continue to harvest the trees on the conservation easements.
Brett, do you want me to comment or do you want to comment first?
No, I agree with Nicole.
Okay, so here's what I think. And reading over all the details from back when we made these conservation easements and looking at what the spirit is, and again, they're using the tree husbandry or forest husbandry line, which what I think that should be, and they said it was getting rid of diseased trees, dead trees, cleaning up things, making trees that lessen the canopy so young trees can grow to make a healthier forest. And that all sounded good to me. The part that they brought up in the last meeting was that they would also be planting and harvesting trees over years to come, almost like a Christmas tree farm. You plant a tree, 7 years later, you sell it as a Christmas tree. It takes a while. They have an awful lot of property, a lot of acreage that's not in a conservation easement. I understand. I think this, my own opinion, it might be wrong, but I think this is also there's a money side to this. I think obviously Hull is paying money for trees. If I'm a sawmill or a lumber company, I don't know how much I want to buy diseased and dead trees when I can buy live, healthy trees, especially if I'm milling this out for a finished product. So to me, that's a way for the tribe to make income through the sale of trees. And I don't think every tree that's dead and diseased is what's going to be cut down. I think that could be, but I think there's going to be an awful lot of healthy trees cut down at the same time. So because of the size of the land and the small portion of this land, which I consider a conservation easement, and I don't begrudge the tribe for trying to increase their earnings. I mean, they deserve to be able to do that on their property. But I think in the spirit of the conservation easements, they have all those other acres to do that on. And I'm thinking, leave these two areas alone. I've not been convinced after walking the property with the two selectmen that everything that is written and what they were doing is what actually happened. That very wide 20 to 30-foot driveway that went in, I know they needed to get trees out, but it made this wide path that'll take forever to grow back. I mean, if they just don't touch another thing, it'll be 40 years before you see good-sized trees growing in that area. So my opinion is to have them do whatever they want on their own property. God bless them, and I hope it makes them a lot of money. But on the two conservation easements, I think as a town, we have to protect conservation easements. I think it's our duty to protect conservation easements. And if not, somebody, as Madeline would say, would come buy a piece of property with an easement on it. And they say, well, I can do what I want because this town just let the tribe do it, so why can't I do it? And they'll use that as a precedent. So we don't want to set a bad precedent in this case. So that is my take on it. And I'd be glad to listen to any counter points. If not, we can bring this to a vote.
I don't have anything to add except a question of if our ruling is unanimous, that we are not going to agree with continued cutting on the conservation easements. Are we looking at any type of legal action? Are we liable from the tribe or from Hull in any way, do we think?
Sure, so they could get an attorney and try to fight this, and we could fight it also, but looking at the way that the easements were written and what they've already said they wanted to do, I think it far exceeds the tree husbandry or the forest husbandry that they portrayed it as being. And they made the statement on a recording that they were gonna plant trees and cut them over years to come. And to me, that's like a forest, it's like a forest farm, a tree farm. So what I would do is if the vote goes in that direction, I would tell our town planner to write a letter to Hull Forest Products and to say that the Board of Selectmen have voted. We have voted to say that on these particular sites, these two properties, that we say, no, you cannot, you have to cease and desist, you cannot do anything to those properties. Now, I don't want to see them do anything to them, just let them grow, except for maybe fix the wall that Stephen mentioned. And then they can do what they want on their own property. So at least it'll be an official document by us, sent by our planner to the Hull Forest Products, and they can copy Massachusetts and whoever else needs to be copied on it. We'll get a letter, we'll copy the Conservation Commission on it, and obviously the Board of Selectmen on it, so. Yes, you have to go up there, Madeline, because nobody will hear you but us, so.
State of Connecticut is very, very supportive of the care of conservation easements. It's a very, very strict sense of regulations and rules that the AG oversees. And about 7 years ago, there was an enormous case that really solidified lesser cases for people like our town when there is a conservation easement. A family wanted to build a golf on some conservation easement property that they claimed that the deed said they could do. And it took about 5 years of very, very important legal work. But the state and the towns won. And they had to remove, the family had to remove the golf course. And that has been like a landmark case. And I have all the newspaper articles on that to support you. I think one of the difficulties that I see easements being, and even land in trust, is that it's mostly neighbors or the people who own the easement or own the property who push hard. They push the holder of the easement very hard. They know that you will be frightened by the thought of a lawsuit. They know that you're thinking, we don't want to spend money to protect this. And as a resident, and then somebody who has seen a lot of conservation easement work, I urge you to be really strong with what you believe and not be intimidated by a thought that they might bring some kind of action or that they might try this again. They probably will try it again. That's what we have done. People keep trying, and you have to be on guard. And that's one of the weak points of conservation easement, is that somebody has to monitor. I'm not sure the town should be holding them, but I think it's important that you go ahead.
Okay. Alan, thank you so much.
I just want to make one more comment. So, before we move to vote or, make a motion, I guess. So at that last meeting, I did ask the Conservation Commission to see if there was any happy medium in a ground that'll work for both parties. And they came back with basically no on all that. So that's where I stand. It's supporting the Conservation Commission in their position on it.
Wow. I agree with you on that 100%. Yeah, so okay, any other discussion?
One last thing before I'll make a motion, but, what was the exact question asked? So I can make a motion.
I
That's fine,
think
'cause I
that
don't have
the
that.
question was asked by the Manchester Pequot Nation to be able to do good tree husbandry on the conservation easements that are on their property in the town of North Stonington.
So I'll make a motion to deny any request, or the current request by the Mashantucket Pequot Nation regarding harvesting trees on the, conservation easement property.
I'll second.
Great. Any further discussion on this matter? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion as Brett had stated, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's a 3-0 vote, and I will get that information to the town planner tomorrow. And I get a letter off from her to whoever needs to receive it, okay? All right, so next on the agenda is Alan's piece, and we'll just give him a second to come back, because they just came in and went somewhere, so.
I don't, what is that?
Oh, I didn't, I sent you an email that, so we, kind of in a hot mess at town hall too, and we're way behind on getting bid checks out, and I said, could I bring them to town? To the meantime, you could sign, well,
This is how Bill and them used to do it when he was a selectman, during the meetings.
yeah, so, it's a big pile, because that's only half of them. And now, you got 2/3 of them.
So it's actually, there's a lot that could have been one check.
Yeah, so, while we're waiting here for a second, because we're doing things in a pinch, all right, because we have people doing things that don't typically do them. So what happened today was they made out the checks for the Eversource, which is typically multiple checks. Usually it's one check, but today they did multiple checks, one for each line, which is why it's increased the checks by so many, the number so many. But, we want to try to get checks out tomorrow because we're a little bit late on some of them, not awfully late, but things fell through the cracks over the last week or so, as you can imagine. So, Mr. Ricker, would you like to make comment?
I'm sorry, to the Board of Select, I assume the meeting was 7 o'clock. In order to discuss the, issue with the Mashantuckets, but I understand that you had that discussion and that you had the vote, so
Unanimously.
We voted no.
Unanimously,
deny.
we support your decision.
No, that's okay. So most of the meetings are at 7. Ours, we made ours 6:30 a while back so we can get home a little earlier, but I should have reminded you today when you're in town hall.
Okay.
But it fell, I think, in favorable towards the Conservation Commission and what their ask was. And I did give the selectmen time to read this, and then Steve made comment on this also. And the person from Hull, which that copy of it's right there for him, he never came, so. I told Steve and the other selectmen that what I'll do tomorrow is I'll have Susan Cullen send a letter out to Hull Forest Products, copy and Mashantucket's, copy the Conservation Commission, and copy the Board of Selectmen on what our decision was, so everybody knows what it is.
And it was important that it made tonight since they were planning to start August 1st.
Correct. Now because and I had mentioned that no decision is almost like a yes, because we're not saying no. Okay? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks. Alan, did you get back? Okay, so next on the agenda is the 298 building HVAC discussion, and yeah. I did, Alan, can you come up to the mic for me? So I did, myself and Alan have been working with Eversource and a woman named Valentina to talk about what we can do with this building. A little bit of a precursor is this. I did talk to Samantha from the Early Learning Center and asked her what her appetite was to do, because I know she has a heat problem over there also. And back a couple of months ago, when she was working on a grant and thought she would kick into the cost of getting, if we did any sort of air conditioning with mini splits or so on, through a grant. And then that way, even though it's a town building, it also helps her business. So she, we wouldn't rely on her to pay for the whole thing, nor would she expect us to pay for the whole thing. In the meantime, rather than wait, because it looked like it was gonna take a while because of the blue tape and so on, she's put those standing air conditioners that you can vent out through holes, and she has enough that'll get her through this summer. But she does want to look at grants and see if she can get something more permanent for next summer. But at least she has enough coolness in that big room and the other rooms that to get through here. So she's taken a step back from this year, and it gives us a chance to breathe because we can put money into capital or money into budget next year to do that. But I do want to talk about this room. And these mini splits are both, not only are they cooling, but they're also heating. And even if we got them in late and we're through the cooling season, we might be able to, may help us in the warming season. So Alan's done some research, talked to Eversource. I'm just going to have him fill you in a little bit about what the project looks like, what the cost would be. And then we can talk a little bit about if we decide to do it, where the money would come from. So go ahead, Alan.
So with talking to one of the contractors, or the one that actually called back, which is perfect. This room alone, I believe it was 7 heads. She didn't put how many heads exactly, but it was 7 heads along one of the walls to heat this room down to 100 people capacity. As the fire marshal said, I believe it's 230 in this room or 240, I forgot. It's on the wall though. So just doing 100 people, because 100 people in this room would be pretty tight.
Yeah.
It was like $42,500 for this room just to put the mini splits in. That was before I have another meeting next Wednesday with the gas boilers we have downstairs and the hot water heat that we have in here right now. We need to put a control system on that'll make it so the mini splits actually run first. And then if it can't keep up, then the heat we have would dip in and try to heat it back up to the right temperature. As well as the same with the AC. So there has to be a building control that controls the heat in the AC we already have. Let the mini splits run first. That's the only way we can get the rebates or the financing through Eversource. If we went with the financing, we would get the financing and not so much of a rebate, if any. If we went with the rebate, we might not get the financing and we have to pay for the whole thing. Just the first floor of the daycare with the 4 rooms, the old metal shop, across from the wood shop, Samantha's office, and the other room. I don't know what those, I think they used to be science rooms. That was 35,000 for those 4. The same thing. They'll have to be because there's no AC there, it makes it easier. It'll only control the gas boilers in the basement, and the Fujitsu's would run first. And then the boilers would kick in if they need be. The boilers still have to run to heat the rest of the building. The rest of the AC in the building would still run, but not very often. When I had talked to MCore, I always get that confused. MCore does the heating and cooling in this building for us. That's the maintenance schedule we have. They do everything. They did say the AC units are 21 years old. They might be a touch low on Freon, but if we do that, we'd have to buy an entire bottle. So it's not really worth the money for a pound to put into it when I talked to them. He also said you could put the pound in now and next year it could be down low again. He goes, they're getting to that age where they're starting to get tired and gonna need replacing. He said his recommendation was if you can go with the mini splits, I would definitely recommend it. And that came exactly from the mechanic that's worked on this whole building. I had also priced out, this room included the small room next to us. We did not include mini split heads in the 3 side rooms. We figured if they left the doors open, there'd be plenty of in here, especially with only having 40 people in here or 30 people in here. It would definitely make its way in there with the air moving around. The only reason it's so expensive is because of the head count we can have in this room. You have to reduce body heat temperature to get the rest of the room cool.
Let me get this straight. So if you have something that regulates the boilers we have now in the basement, it'll know that this room is being heated by or cooled by the mini splits, but the rest of the building it won't affect. They'll be able to still run as they do now.
Yep, it'll still keep the rest of the building at the right temperature. Just that portion of the building won't need to call for heat. It'll be controlled by that. In between, there's like an in-between thermostat, pretty much what it is, and it splits the gas for the hot water and then the Fujitsu's to run at the right time. So we run that more often. It's a percentage rate Eversource needs. I don't know what the rate is with the proportions of what they need to run more or less.
So you said we're down 1 pound of Freon, and you explained it to me that we have to buy the full case, not just the 1 pound.
Yes.
But what does that cost? What would the cost be on that?
They didn't honestly give me a cost for the Freon. You'd have to look because the market price changes all the time. Because I
Can you give
believe
me a
it's
ballpark?
over $1,000 for a bottle.
Are
Thanks.
these R22 or have they been
Are-
converted?
No, these are old. There are 22.
So let's talk about that. So $1,000 a bottle, how many bottles we'd have to buy?
One.
One.
I believe there's, don't quote me on this one. I believe there's like 20 something pounds in a bottle.
If
I could be wrong.
if we are down a pound of Freon and we put a pound of Freon in, what does that equate to as far as temperature in the room? Could we lose 5 degrees?
That I couldn't tell you, to be honest. It should work the same. I would think it would just struggle a little bit being down the pound. I mean, it still works now. It's just struggling.
So wouldn't it be worthwhile to put a pound in if it's $1,000, which is a big far cry from the $35,000 or $42,000 and see if that helps to bring the temperature down? I mean, we only have another month or 2 of heat and then it's going to start cooling off anyway.
Good.
And that would give us time to discuss more about the finances of putting in the mini splits, but why wouldn't we do that? I would to pay the $1,000 or $1,200 or whatever the number is, get the pound in. If we can drop this temperature in this room by 5 degrees, I think it would make a big difference. We are not going to have a meeting in here with 100 people anytime soon. The earliest we'll have a large number in here, I guess, would be possibly in November when there's an election. And that won't be 100. That'll be a smaller number than that, but maybe 50 at a time. So could we get a price on the Freon and putting a pound in and then seeing if we could lose 5 degrees? To me, I think 5 degrees would make a big difference. I also think the idea of down the road, putting the mini splits, it makes sense to me. We put $75,000 in this building for utilities, but we put another 20,000 for upgrades, correct? I think we did, right? It was your suggestion in the budget to put 20,000 in for upgrades.
I don't remember.
I think we did. So I mean, that 20,000 would cover half of the mini splits. The other would have to come out of either an appropriation of the Board of Finance or come out of the 75,000. And at the end of the year, if we overspent utilities, then the appropriation would come out of that. I do know that Samantha is taking some space upstairs in probably a couple of 2 or 3 months, which means she'll add to the square footage on the utility payment, which will bring our payments down a little bit. But And the school's not changing, they're keeping the same, even though they moved some personnel out of the building, they're keeping those rooms for, other uses, so, what's your thoughts?
A few things. First of all, I thought we were trying to get this into the steep grant before it went, and I know we missed that, but why did we miss that?
I don't think we ever, we always had the central office in the
Right, but we
steep grant.
talked about it for here, and we were getting quotes on the mini splits for in here to try to get it. I know we were in a time crunch, but
I don't know why we missed it. I just don't ever remember this room being in the, I know we might have talked about it at one point, but I never did a hard, fast study or get quoting on this room for that, for the time for the steep grant. And maybe it's a timing thing, I'm not sure. But I do know that, the mini splits were approved for the central office.
how many ton unit do we have on this building?
That I don't know. I don't
And
remember.
Did they say if they figure there's a leak or just loss over the years where?
Loss over the years, which, I mean, at some point, it's a pressurized system, there has to be a leak
So
somewhere.
I can say that I had a similar instance in my much smaller, obviously, commercial unit, but I did get another 3 years out of putting in more Freon, and that was an old R22. I know prices have gone up since then. And then I eventually converted to a mini split. But what was the rebate on the 42,000?
It depends. Like I said, it depends on what,
So if we don't finance anything, do they give you a number?
that was that number I gave you.
Oh, so that's after the rebates?
Nope, nope. Yes, that's the number. There might be a rebate off of that. They don't know what the rebate's gonna be because they have to pick a unit. So that was just for Jitrude's price. Then they pick SEER units, and then you get a different, depending on what SEER you go with, depends on the rebate through Eversource. It also depends on what building control system you go with, and if you take the financing, what you get for a rebate.
Okay.
It might not be anything if you finance.
Yeah, so I do think we should at least try the Freon. I know it actually was pretty cold in here last year once they fixed the control or something. So it was working and cooling more last year. The second topic of providing and looking into AC for the daycare, I don't agree with that at all. It wasn't in here for our school. And many schools don't have it. And that was the condition of that building when we leased it out. To add another $35,000 into that, unless there's heavy grants that would pay for that, it also increases our energy bills and things like that to put AC in it. But if they can get grants that cover, I'd state now like a pretty large percentage of that. I don't think the town should be putting that in. In any commercial rental, you don't get those services. Usually if something goes, it's up to the leasee to pay for that in commercial. It's much different than residential. So if they're looking to upgrade or add that to it, usually it's on the leasee, not the leaseholder.
You don't think that just from an investment into the building, if she ever decided to leave, that would be a positive if we had the air conditioning in there?
I mean, it would be a positive, but the amount that we're charging now for rent is lower than most commercial nets. So I think by us putting that in there and provide, we're really cutting that funds to the town.
Is there an opportunity, like, listen, I'm like thrilled that she's in there, thrilled she's looking at the second floor. Is there an opportunity when the lease is up to be renegotiated again? I don't know how many years.
It's a 3 years, so yes,
So-
we are going to renegotiate after 3 years, whoever it happens to be in.
And then somehow, so you, 42 and 35 is what you had said, right? So we're looking at, and then,
Wait, but she
is-
doesn't need to do hers now. The 42 we're looking at is for this room, which
Yeah.
we'd like to do almost immediately. We can put her discussion off until next spring.
yeah. And then I have a question. This is a debate that my husband and I have at home all the time. I am of the belief that when you're not in the building or in the house, that I shut things off. He is of the belief that it's only going to take more energy when Thank God he's not on.
So he is correct by that, because then you're letting everything heat back up.
Yeah.
And then you have to double work the unit, not double work the unit, but it takes time to get
Yeah.
it back down. Or same
Okay.
thing with heat. You cool the temperature off, the table becomes 60 degrees, and then you want to heat it back up to 75. Now you have to heat the mass back up.
Yeah,
You
okay.
could lower it a
So,
little.
I mean,
You
yeah,
don't have
is
to come
there,
at that high
is there a
level, but-
threshold that you can keep it at, right? So you're always, you know, you don't ever want your pipes to freeze and this and that, but it just seems to me, I guess in my mindset, which is now wrong, thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's completely fine. It's just a lot of area to heat and or cool when there's barely anybody ever in here on a regular basis. So to me, it feels like a waste of money, but, when you do need to have something, well, we don't have to necessarily worry about the heat in November, but for the election, but, yeah. So so I'm all for grants. So you keep mentioning rebates and then you mentioned something else.
So that's through Eversource. Eversource will do like a loan for you for a certain amount of period of time, and they'll hold it. And then you get a monthly charge. So you'll get your electric bill in one bill. You'll get a second bill that'll be just paying for the mini split. So they're pretty much holding the note for you instead of a bank. They'll hold it for you.
And there's interest, I'm assuming.
I'm sure there's something.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is yet because we don't know what the cost is yet. It depends on a lot, the seer, when we're gonna do it. Next like say we did this one now and we did the daycare later, it could be Eversource does a different style next year. They change the grant, not the grants, but they change the percentages, they change the rebates, it changes yearly. Like last year, I believe they did more gas stuff than electric stuff, and this year they're doing quite a bit of electric, but they're on the commercial side where last year was residential side. So it could change again in January. It can all sadly change.
No, Alan, with it, I know when mini splits, you know, have gained popularity and now they're very popular. But it was, if you didn't have ductwork in, things like that, mini splits made sense. Since we have the ductwork in, did we get a price on what a new air handler and
We didn't,
outside unit would be?
we did
'Cause
not
they
go
were
that
doing
way yet.
rebates on that as well through Eversource. It didn't always have to be a mini split.
We didn't go that route yet. We could get a price on everything, but it's gonna be quite pricey. To be honest, because by the time you take both units off the roof, I mean, you're gonna talk a crane, you're talking the units themselves. I bet it'd be quite pricey.
So I would worry that if we did switch to mini splits and then we just left the old equipment on the roof, just to rot there, it's probably not the best solution.
They sit
though, either.
there. They sit there. I mean, you could take them down. There's nothing to say you can't. I mean, you could let them run for a while and make sure the mini splits and everything kept up. I believe the mini splits we looked at are good down to 0 here. And I believe that was 60 or 55 in this room. And then you could change Sears, and go, not Sears, it's not called Sears and that's Sears with these units, but you could change models and you could get it down to, I believe it's 32, which we wouldn't have to do here because it's very rare it's down that low.
And now the offices or the classrooms that the school utilizes here,
Yes.
do they have window units in those?
Yes. I got a price for those. Actually, my thing just shut off. I did have a price for those. I don't remember what it was off the top of my head. I did those 3 classrooms only for the fact of the slim units or the mini splits are a lot cheaper in electricity to run than those window units. Plus it's heat. I know that a couple times when I was walking through doing stuff in here in the wintertime, they would say, hey, it's cold in here, what's going on? And then change the valve a little bit and then it was hot.
Right.
So it's like, can you turn it back down a little bit? But especially those ones, because it's not part of the main building, it's kind of like the outcast part of the building and they say it is colder.
I mean, I
those
can
3.
tell you just from experience, those mini splits are very efficient,
Very efficient.
when it comes to the energy use. So that might be something we talk to the Board of Ed about, or we look at if Steve comes along again, then maybe we look at everything. And even the daycare at that point, because if it's steep, maybe she helps contribute to their
Well, she don't have,
20%.
she don't have to give us the 20% at
Right.
that point. So this wasn't for any kind of a vote tonight. We just wanted to start the discussion to let you know that we're thinking about it, looking at alternatives. Alan, you can look at look at the existing equipment, see what that would cost. I think we can look at the mini splits. I had said no on these 3 rooms at this point because they have air handles in the windows, but we can still get pricing. We might as well, the more pricing, the better, because if a steep does come back around, it'd be better to be shovel ready, right? So
And that's September.
if it comes this year, there's nothing saying it's gonna come this year. The other thing is, I do think we should get a price and move forward with the Freon. I think that might be a quick fix it, even if it only gets us a year or two. But if it can drop 5 degrees, I think it makes a big difference. I don't remember this room being ever too cold, but I often remember it being too hot.
Yeah.
So,
And
Uh,
where would the mini splits go? Where would they be located?
So there was a lot of talk. Most of them was on the back wall below the heat.
On the back
talk-
wall?
Yep, on the outside wall. Only for the units, it's easy to run the pipes, the Freon pipes out and the power in and everything.
So they'd be hanging out the back of the,
There'd be a couple outside units. I believe it was 2 to the 6 heads in here, and there would be 6 heads along there. And I believe there might have been one on this back wall here. It was to try to get the air to circulate around, and it's really hard with this ceiling in here, he said, because of the height differences in that wall, just stopping the air from moving. So they were talking a couple on the outside wall and one, I believe, on the left, kind of behind me, to try to push it around.
So why wouldn't they want to put any of the
They talked,
ceiling?
they talked about the
heads
ceiling
in
ones
there?
too. We looked at a couple different ways.
oh, I didn't know there were
Um,
ceilings.
I need to ask him exactly what the price was for which ones. We talked about a couple over here
Mhm.
and then a couple in the taller ceiling.
It'd
and
be a
then couple
longer
in the
run, but
backside.
it might be more efficient to have.
Yeah, that's what they had to look at, was the run compared to which unit they could put in and how far they could go. Because you only have a certain amount of lines that you can run for them. So,
So if we just kind of table the 35,000 for her for this year, right? And we look at the 42, you're saying that you thought there was $20,000 extra in there for improvements, plus the 75,000 that's in there for utilities anyway. Then we might be able to piece it together this year, or do we just think about it and put it in the budget for next year so that it's budgeted for and we
well,
do it?
if the financing, say, is a 5-year financing plan, you have more than enough money with the 20,000 put aside, because it might be a $10,000 payment each year for 5 years roughly. So that only takes half of that 20,000 out of the budget. That's if we finance it. So we'll have to get more information on best practices on how to do this. But I just wanted to put it on the tables. We're starting to talk about this and recognize that this room, if we're gonna use this room for long term. I also think that part of the reason that Brett wanted that $20,000 in upgrade is some aesthetic things that could happen in this room just to make this a better looking meeting room. Some stuff can come off the ceiling, some paint that's peeling could be repainted. I mean, there's things we can do with this. I know even Quentin had some ideas, talking to him and the 2 Greys got together and talked about IT and how we can greatly improve this room. So, and I think that was originally your intent with that 20,000, Brett, to see how to improve this space.
Yeah,
But-
well, when you bring that up, I remember the peeling paint.
Yeah.
And some of the other issues, but
Yeah.
I do think we should try to get the extra Freon put in and see if that helps kick that compressor be a little more.
I agree. I think 5 degrees makes a big difference.
yeah, I
Uh,
believe when I talked to him about it, I had asked, and I don't remember if I ever got an email back. I will ask again tomorrow.
Okay.
I can send him an email and make sure they update it. And then I'll ask him for a whole swap here, with a whole exact same thing that's here, but just new. That number would be very interesting.
Yeah, okay. That was good to know.
When is our contract up with them, or do you know?
I do not remember off the top of my head. I believe it's a year. I
Not
can't
sure.
remember.
But with install stuff and new things, we could put that out to bid too.
Yes.
So we don't have to use them.
Nope.
Specifically.
I actually had called, so Eversource has a list you have to call though, to get the rebate or get the financing. So I went off their list, called 3 contractors. One I called, left a message, they never called back. One contractor said it was just too big of a job for him at the moment. And the other contractor actually came back and they're coming back again on Wednesday. So,
Very good, thank you so much.
it was 21.5 for 3 classrooms across the hall, in case you wanted that number.
21.5 for 3 classrooms.
Yep, for those 3 classrooms. The only reason that was so much is because of the square footage of them.
So is it the same? That's obviously separate ductwork because they never had AC in,
Correct.
right? So even if we replaced a unit, there's no way to
This.
tap into that ductwork to,
It
those-
depends on the size and it's never gonna be the same as this, because those are like external rooms
Right.
almost. There's only one wall that actually meets this building, where this building, 3 of the walls are within other rooms, so you're kind of holding it.
I'm
Okay.
requesting a mini split right behind my head, Alan, so you try and make that work before we figure this out.
We could turn the table and put a window unit in.
We're gonna get Ed Tucci to come back and do a little drawing on it, so it matches the other drawings up there. Alan, thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.
Carl has a comment. He asked how to unmute, so can you unmute him? Carl, you're gonna be unmuted in a minute. Or ask to unmute, and then you hit that button. We can't manually unmute.
Can you just hit that little microphone on the Zoom
Can he
and
text you his question or comment?
can he call you and you put him on speakerphone and hold it up to a microphone?
I can do that.
Ways around it. He can hear us though, obviously.
Oh, here it is. Carl, you're on speakerphone here.
Okay, hey, thank you for, shout out earlier. There's a lot more people that are there too at the same time. I don't know if you can hear me or not. Couple questions. I believe the heating system in that building for most of it is a continuous loop. So make sure Alan remembers that if they go to do anything with connections, they have to do it at the points inside the rooms. And then the other thing would be make sure he is aware of what they need for electrical service and make sure the building is up to handle it.
He's shaking his head,
and then
yes, Carl.
The R12, I think is what he said, not R22. The older stuff is expensive, but if you buy the tank, do we get to keep the tank? So now you can run 1 year, 2 years, or twice a year to put the stuff in. Thank you very much. That's all I got to say.
Thanks, Carl.
So Alan, do you want to answer that question or you?
That will be, so I will have to look into the power and I will have to find out about the bottle if we do get to keep it or not. That I'm not sure of. I believe that was part of our conversation on the phone, but like I said, I haven't received an email with definite answers from all of them. And I will have to find out, like I said, about the power.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you, Carl, for weighing in. Since Brett brought up the secret, I have some good news. We finally got the layout drawings for the irrigation. I got them from Troy. I think I got them this morning. And I sent them out to the 3 people that we contacted earlier to do the survey out there that has to be done in order for SHPO, which is the State Historic Preservation Society. We had to do a study out there, which was going to cost somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000, what the Board of Ed had agreed to pay. We got those drawings today. I sent those out. I heard back from one of the groups already. He's on vacation, but he said he'd get back to me when he gets back on Monday. I did not hear from the other 2, but the good news is we have that. That was the only thing that was holding up the irrigation, and now we are able to move forward, which is great news. Old business vacancies and appointments. So we know we have 2 vacancies at town. Right now, what we're doing is, well, we have 1 presently. The other one will be happening on the 26th of July. Laura, who's going to be leaving on the 26th right now, and Janet working tirelessly trying to get everything done that has to get done. We also, I have contracted with Susan Pike to work on the audit and payroll until we can get someone else to do the payroll. Jen and Laura were working on payables today, which is why you have so many checks in front of you. Trying to get caught up. That might have fallen through the cracks a bit in the last week or two. When Susan was trying to prioritize what had to be done before she left. But I can't thank those two enough for all they're doing in town to make things work. We've had a lot of people say they could come in and help, but it's a nice gesture, but it's not easy to get someone to come in, and by the time you train them, you could have done it yourselves. But at least we have people recognizing that we're a little bit upside down. Good news is that Susan did do the payroll today. And so we should have no problem with checks. My biggest fear was to come in Friday morning and have people tell me they didn't get paid. And I don't know how I would have handled that situation, but hopefully we don't have to do that. One of the best guess is we're getting applications from Indeed. And I don't know if you know how that works, but people that leave their apps up there might have already taken jobs, or if there's 5 boxes to check off, they check off 2 boxes. Indeed automatically sends me the resume. I even got a resume from my daughter, who did not know she was sending me a resume because she checked off 2 of the boxes and she's still on Indeed. I said, well, let's see if you should probably take it down. Even Sue Cullen said, oh, I think mine's still up on Indeed too. So a lot of times you get stale resumes and applications. When you get a cover letter, then you know it's legitimate, it's new, that they write something with it. Brett's been monitoring, as we know, the LinkedIn, and as he sends them to me, I send them out to you guys. We went on the GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association site yesterday, and as I mentioned to you earlier, that everyone that's a member, which is over 1,000 members, got a blast from the state of Connecticut and nearby Rhode Island. And it was in the New London Day on Sunday, because I saw the ads there, and we'll see what happens there. That's a little bit of an expensive proposition going into a newspaper. We hope that people do read the newspaper digitally, but I have seen other towns like Stonington, Waterford, Montville do that. I don't know what kind of luck they've had, but we've got it out pretty much everywhere. I did get an application from someone in town for the accounting general's position that is probably going to be worthy of at least going through the interview process. As we'll see what happens this week. Hopefully that some quality candidates come in this week. My opinion is that knowing how things can't stop, it's really important that we concentrate and get that accounting general's job and running first, because those things can't stop. Payroll, and they have to keep going. And I'm going to be down another person within 2 weeks. So that's important. I have talked to the Board of Ed chair and also to Kathy Trammell. She's still trying to get herself, engrossed in the job here as a business manager. She's got training on Thursday for Infinite Visions, which I had asked her if she could be at a meeting, a conference call with Susan and Jen and Laura, but she can't, but that's okay. I'll fill her in. But she's also willing to take on a piece. Her and maybe Alicia could take on a piece if we need be. So all's not lost. We're moving in a good direction. I think that give me another month or 2 or 3, and I think we're going to be in a pretty good position. We have a strong town hall in all the facets, and we'll just make this work, and I think we'll be in pretty good shape down the road. So things happen. I'm sure this is things that happen in other towns, and we deal with it. The town has been here for over 200 years. Not going to close us down. So I think we'll figure it out. Anyway, I have nothing else to say about that unless you have questions. I'll be glad to answer them.
I just would like to echo your thanks to the town employees that are stepping up to help. But Bob, I'd like to thank you for putting in extra time yourself and going through all this. I know it's challenging, and when I come into town hall every now and then to check the mailbox and things like that, I see you going through everything, and I know it's a lot for you, but thanks, because you're managing it very well.
Well, thank you. I think that's part of being there all the time. I think it helps, knowing what's going on. And I'll be honest with you, when we lost our business, admin finance director back in November, the previous one, it forced me to learn things like the budget and like things that I was riding shotgun on that stuff because, you know, we had someone to do that. So that was actually a good learning experience. So sometimes out of a situation that's maybe not the greatest, something positive comes out of it. And I think that'll help me coming into this budget season, even if we have a good quality person there, but now we can do it together rather than me just riding shotgun. So yeah, that's a positive. Thank you, Brett, for those nice words. Are there any public comment, either online or in the building to anything you want to comment on? If not, the next meeting we have is August 6th. As of right now, that meeting is that's the meeting I'm asking for I don't want to cancel because I'm asking both the fire company and the highway garage to come in and start talking about capital. I want to get ahead of that. So when the capital committee meets again and when we go in September 9th, I think we have a tri-board meeting. I think it's tri-board September 9th, I believe. And August 6th is our next meeting. So I want to get ahead of that. So basically, if you were at the last tri-board meeting, you saw that the capital committee basically said, hey, this is a Board of Selectmen deal. You come up with the capital, you come up with the plan, and we'll tell you if we like it or not. It's not exactly how I envisioned that to happen with that commission, but I get it. It is our job to do that. So we get as much input as we can from the fire company and from the highway garage. And so Alan, you're on notice August 6th. If Donnie's here, he can obviously be with you to do it. But we're looking at, I want to start looking at next year's capital, but also tuning up the 5 and the 20-year plans. I did sign all the paperwork today for the lease agreements, and we've got the insurance that's coming in for those. We got the attorney's letter back today also. The attorneys, because it's not called the attorney's letter, it's the attorney's, I'm lost for words, I don't know what it is, but my head's spinning. But we got that back today. And so all the leases now, the ambulance and the 3 pieces of equipment for the highway garage will all be finalized very shortly. And good news is every one of the 4, it came a little bit under budget. So it's good. So I don't have to ask for any additional monies. Go ahead.
Before we move to close, can I make a motion to add something to the agenda real quick?
Sure.
Since Alan is here. I'd like to motion that we add before adjournment, compactor upgrades
Sure.
update, just so we know and the town knows where we are. 'Cause I have had people say comments that they've seen all the new equipment over there and just was wondering what's happening.
So when I called to get an update on the truck, I believe it was right before I went on vacation, so about the 8th or the 9th. I called to get an update on the truck. Everything got finalized before the end of the year. Because that was not part of the capital part of before. We had gotten all the containers in the 20 something when I got back. All the containers were pretty much on hold. We have to pour a small part of the floor where the garbage is to get it back up and level. It's just a couple of inches to get the container level, so that way the funnel system will fit right. We're really on hold because the truck's out 16 weeks from when I had called. So hopefully it's about 12. I'd say Friday we should be roughly about 12 weeks out. Once I know the truck's being shipped, then we could pull the garbage out, move it to the middle bay, take the garbage fence down, pour the floor, give it a week to set or 2, and then roll the container in, set up the funnel, and be good to go. We will have to use the walking floor trailers for a week or so while we get the funnel built and everything done, and for the concrete to settle, because I don't want to roll a container and fill it with 10 ton of garbage right off the bat.
So you think by winter we should be?
I'm hoping. I was hoping for the fair when we ordered the truck in October, and they just kept getting pushed out and pushed out. So I figure I'll wait till beginning of October, call Freightliner and say, where's the truck? It's been a couple months now. How are we making out? Because it was a rough 12 to 16 weeks. I think he told me 16. That way I wouldn't get my hopes up, because I've been bugging him, pushing him. I'm like, I ordered in October. Where is it? So.
Is there anything that we did that pushed that back? Because we expected to see that truck originally in May or June, didn't we?
Yeah, I don't believe there's anything we did. We signed the paperwork in October. It was out, I believe, the 8th of October or 10th of October, something around that date. I believe it's honestly Freightliner of Hartford getting build dates, so they only get so many trucks per year. With this capital plan, with the financing you just approved and signed, we won't get to order that truck until March. One of the trucks until March. Freightliner of Hartford came and order it. One of the reasons being the transmission that we had spec'd out in that truck isn't available right now. They only made so many for the year. Their shelves are empty. The factory's not going back to make that tranny again for a while, so we'd have
Which
to
truck
go.
is that?
Both trucks, the 10-wheeler, and they think they have a transmission for the hook truck. I'm waiting to hear back. I talked to Matt a week or so ago. We're waiting to hear. The 10-wheeler, that transmission that goes in that truck, which is actually the same one in both the two trucks we've already talked about and ordered. They're out of them on the shelf. So he was gonna bring one down, one of the state trucks down that has the different transmission and try it out. I believe it was a 13-speed automatic. When I drove one there, I hated it, to be honest. They're slow on the get-go from factory. Allison made, I believe that was an Allison or an Eaton. I can't remember now. They make an update for it, so it takes off a little bit faster. I mean, from me to you, Bob, it would take 4 gears to get there, and it's just a royal pain. And they're slow, which is fine. Slow's fine, but it's just, they're really, really slow.
Right, so, in the budget, we have revenue for the sale of the old trucks. So as soon as we do get these trucks in, I need to get those other trucks available for sale.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that revenue comes in.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm hoping it'll get done before next fiscal year.
what?
But yeah, so because we can't order till March, I believe that 10-wheeler and the hook truck, because they can't get ordered till March, we won't see for 10 or 11 months.
So the 10-wheeler in March will be done plowing for the year, correct?
We will be done plowing for the
So
year
we can
before
sell
that
that
truck is
truck.
even ordered.
So we can sell that truck, yeah.
So we could hope it doesn't snow in March when we order it, or April,
Okay, unfortunately, it seems like it's a supply and demand thing, and
sadly.
but thanks for the update. I will, since you're here, we can also say that the pickleball court phase 2 has been done, and we're waiting for phase 3, and we're hoping that's gonna happen in the next couple of weeks, correct? That's the final coat in the lining. Okay, but the other part, if you've been by it, you've seen that has to get done, so like everything else around here, nothing happens quickly. All right, well, thank you, Alan, for that. Anything else, Brett? Any other questions of Alan while he's
No,
there? Oh, thank you.
That's it.
All right, so again, the next meeting is on the 6th. We'll have Alan and representation from the fire company. And I'll take a motion for adjournment.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
The time is what? My watch stopped.
7:39.
7:39. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.